Understand your agents, your agency against yourself. No different than if somebody was doing business in your name. No matter where they go around the world, they sign that name that don't belong to them. Why do you think persons that are called black, Negroes, and coloreds can't vote unless every second praetor of the corporation after the Senate of the House of Rome decides whether they want their cattle to vote with them names that belong to them? Why do you think it only applies to persons who think they're minorities? It doesn't apply to other human beings around the world. It only applies to persons who insist on trying to be somebody that they're not. And no matter how many generations that takes place, they're dead in law. That's what makes you a corpse. That's where the ens legis comes from. Do you understand? That's the 14th Amendment person. And that's why they gave the corpse the word person with the 14th Amendment. So then people get confused who can't read law. They see this a person and don't know a corporation's a person's too. And so they send them statements of account in the mail with capital letters on it, which means person, corporation, and then you agree to be the corpse. And so as soon as you start making an argument, you're already dead in the view of the law, and because you accept it as a bill, which it isn't, you're obligated to pay. When actually it should be discharged, because you're under occupation. Of course, if you didn't know that, you're going to act like you're a debtor. Do you see the problem? You see the problem? Clearfield Doctrine. Go ahead.
Well, I got a question.
Go ahead.
So the corporations have been given the rights of people.
14th Amendment. In other words, when they did the spurious 14th Amendment, which was actually set up by field marshals, this was a disguise. See, because when you go into, you know, like our people are familiar when you talk about 40 acres and a mule. If you ask them to set some substance around it, informationally, most of them couldn't tell you.
That racist white man is mule. I want my mule. I want my 40 acres.
Ask them the substance around it, they can't tell you, which makes them incompetent. Now we're dealing with the 3630 parallel. We're dealing with, they would have had to give us, repatriate the people on the land between the Rockies and the Allegheny Mountains, and they recognized that they would have given most of the land back. So they bumped off Lincoln, covered that up, etc., created the 14th Amendment, and created the artificial corpse person. Then they needed some nigger marching preachers to convince you to be people of color, which means artificial persons, and make you think it means Afrocentricity. And you agreed to be 14th Amendment persons, which is listed as called U.S. citizen.
So what do you say about the people who try to use their corporate or their corp status as a tool and try to gain the advantages of a corporation would have?
Well, when natural persons do that, they have a consciousness of the secret treaty of Verona and the Spanish Inquisition, which is the real political background that's operating in the world, and particularly in North America. And so they're reclaiming the estate or the access to the estate, although they didn't create it, to have some cognate control over it. That's what that's about. Okay. And so usually they will authenticate the birth certificate, which is where the priesthood, the dark priesthood, the people our people trust, that told them separation of church and state, they're agents for Rome. You can go in any poor community, you go, before you get 3 blocks that way, before you get 3 or 4 blocks that way, before you get 3 or 4 blocks that way, before you get 3 or 4 blocks that way, you'll find a spy center. And they fund them themselves. They think it has something to do with Jesusness. They're spy centers, and they belong to the Jesuits of Rome, actually. And you're funding your own enslavement. Our people think Christianity means Jesusness. It means Constantine. The Niceno-Constantinopolitan Creed is the official name of what is presented to you as Christianity. And it belongs to the popes of Rome. It's a business hegemony system. And the Skull and Bones Agreement for the marching Negro leader guys who you think don't know this stuff is called a 501c3 agreement. And because our people don't read and they don't understand,
And see, that's the 501c3. That's what the preachers get for teaching the word.
they do. These so-called intelligent people that know God, Jesus, Allah, and Muhammad and everything.
Yeah, man. See, because when you teach the word, you get a 501c3 agreement. See, and then the tithing is 10% for God's word.
That 10% tax is Roman tax from Pope Sylvester II. You know, our people are so out to damn lunch. And the real horrible thing is that people you've trusted have been putting this on you and your generations, and this is where your suffering comes from. It really is. Come from the dark priesthood that you think love godness and Jesusness.
God,
Yes.
back to his question.
Going back to the brother's question
ahead.
here, what I'd like to know, is it practical to try to straddle the fence based on the question that he
Good
asked?
question. Say that again for everybody. Is it practical
to straddle the fence?
All right.
Based on my understanding of what his question was.
Well, let's put it this way, and we'll qualify it too. I think it's long been stated that you can't serve two masters,
Absolutely.
and that's called straddling the fence. It's quite difficult because you give jurisdiction trying to claim jurisdiction. Therefore, you must be clear on jurisdiction. This is why we've always taught jurisdiction. The nature of jurisdiction, the structure of jurisdiction, the trinity of jurisdiction, status, jurisdiction venue, then adjudication. Then there's what? How many types of jurisdiction? 3 in general, although there's 4, but in general 3.
Subject matter.
In personam jurisdiction, subject matter jurisdiction, territorial jurisdiction. Therefore, you must know the aggregate. You must know nation states because they know our people don't know that. And so when you talk about territorial jurisdiction,
They say, yeah, I was in Jersey last week.
what? You wasn't.
Yes, I was.
This is a corporation created on paper.
You know, you can't drive in Maryland.
Well, Maryland is a corporation. It's on paper. So you must talk about the aggregate land. That's why you got to start claiming your land. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Our people need to know the difference between corporations and the natural living, breathing beings and the organic land. And if you don't have claim on the land, then they put you in the corporation because you're listed as a corpse. That's why when they do those licenses, they put all capital letters because it's in the ens legis. Point. But this is what I say. This is what I say. As an example, people, Asiatics and Europeans too, and probably mostly Europeans because the middle class is being dissolved, so they're starting to expose more stuff. How many of you are aware of Lincoln Heights and some other townships or places in Ohio? And there's other places they ain't mentioned too around the country where they shut down the police departments. They had to park the cars. You know why? People starting to learn. They're starting to go after them bonds. And they start putting these people first person. They don't say the police department did it to me. They said Freddie Johnson doing business as a policeman without a bond was messing with me. And they tried to get me to pay a ticket. But I went in there and told the magistrate who pretended to be a judge, I came to get paid. Everybody else was paid. What's up? It's a securities. Isn't it? So this is more or less what's happening. But that's how you're supposed to look at it. Because it's an estate. That's how you... So you're not so much serving two masters. You need to understand you have an estate that they've been hiding and controlling under color of law. Go ahead. So that fine line, so this is what we're doing. We're trying to clarify things so that people can make the distinction between the fine line. Because it's easy to step over the line. Because you got to know the difference between person and person. It's a nuance, isn't it? And so what happens if these persons don't know the organic person from the corpse.
Well, I'm Frankie, and I want a peanut butter sandwich.
You know, or just like you set up here as an example, we can put an organic plant up here with dirt in it, growing nicely, and then we can get this plastic plant from Kmart and tell the people, come up here, we're going to test everybody, come water the plants. And then we'll see who puts water in both of them. And you know the one who puts water in both of them is either an imbecile or they're a minority. They got the mentality of a minor. That person cannot present themselves. They would be represented by a barrister from England because apparently they got the mind of a minor. They'd be listed as a minor, particularly if they start talking about human beings or crayons. First indicator. So we got to clean that mess up for real, because that's what's messing our people up. Partially, it's other things, but those things are keys. And those are code systems that the European quickly tells who his property is. Because a human being will never dishonor his mother and his father, for he recognizes his pedigree. So you'll never see a Chinese come up here and talk about where's the light-skinned yellow guy's organization. Never happened. He ain't giving up his birthright. So when you see grown people, what I'm telling you, know, my light-skinned black girlfriend, that's property. And they confess it out their own mouth. Who you?
Joey Smith. And I'm Christian too.
Oh, all right. Black codes, and then they get mad. That's what the black codes are for.
So,
such persons outside of human family. However, it doesn't apply to nationals. That's why you see nationals come from around the other parts of the world. That crap don't apply to them. So they're not burdened with that nigger tax. Are we clear? And it's structured right in society. It's not even hidden. It is just these people, you know, they're hard-headed. You tell them that human beings aren't crayon? Uh-huh. My uncle's black. Yes? Well, you can take them right to a dictionary. Heritage Dictionary, and you'll see black is Middle English. It don't go past 1100. And then somebody telling you ancient black anything, then it'll say derived from Old High German. Then it'll tell you it means pale and shining. Ain't got nothing to do with complexion. I'm black. Oh, you're a Paleolithic man? Because that's where it comes from. Paleolithic man is German. Our people can't even read. You know, so no, somebody who's taking advantage of you is not going to argue with you. They're going to say, Ritalin. I'm serious. And so the codes apply, and then when they enforce the code, then we will call them racist. Well, race is called the species. I think the human species is called the race, and the human race is broken down into multiple families called nations. You can go to the United Nations, you can go on the World Courts, you can go to Philadelphia, and you'll see the flags that represent the nations of the earth. And I say the green people and the purple people and the light-skinned, orange-skinned, pinstripe people, and don't matter what color you are flag. The only people think that are people have the mentality of children. Of course, they need to be represented by a man, particularly whose name they use in any daggone way. And they're going to tell you about their special personal connection with God and Jesusness. All right, anyway, go ahead.
So
get the point, y'all?
Right on.
Go ahead.
So acting in propria persona, in your proper person, claiming...
That sets up a foundation that doesn't cure.
Okay.
In other words, what we're doing, this is what we're doing. This is basically what we're doing. We're cleaning the dirty table so that you can begin to eat.
Gotcha.
It doesn't mean that you're qualified. It's cleaning the foundation. That foundation in law is referred to as honor versus dishonor. The principle in the common law that trumps the ens legis is the honor of your mothers and your fathers. That means the recognition of your bloodline. Therefore, honor your mothers and your fathers that your days may be longer upon the earth land. That translates into what is known as the common law. And it trumps what is called the Roman law, the civil law, and other types of law. If you cannot make a claim, competent claim, to the connection of the heritage, customs, and traditions of your ancient mothers and fathers. That means you better know something about yourself. The common law is not recognized as having any attachment to you. Are we clear? Okay. This again makes it dangerous. This is again why we keep telling people, look at these terms in law books, because if you did, you would see your own violations. And you would recognize how your leader's been playing you and why they won't give you them kind of books.
They'll start talking about, you see, I spiritually was talking with my grandmom, and she just guided me to this.
What'd she say?
She spoke in tongues.
Oh, all right. That's not how things work in the real world. Are we clear? I'm serious. The world ain't going to take you serious. Let me tell you another thing. We're going to go not only how Abdullah will give you the etymology and the historical background of the transliterations of scripts. Those scholars who really know the truth know that the whole stories that they were reconstructed in about the 21st dynasty of Hikupta, etc., ignoring the other dynasties prior to that, which were all matriarchies. And this is when you begin the stories of the Jesus type thing that you get today, and the Abraham. It's totally contemporary. And if it's not given in its proper cosmological perspective, the world is put into darkness by ignorance and thinking that that's the beginning of the world. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? And so scholars really know this, but they won't tell that because the dogma systems that they have set up, which are really dogma systems, which is counterfeit religion, would collapse overnight. This is again why all your preachers are 99% of them in secret are Masons, while denying it publicly. Same thing with all your industrialists. Same thing with all your preachers, presidents, Tom Jefferson, all them. That's why they had Korans. Do you understand? Because they're dealing with the real history. They're not looking at it either spookily, either like, oh, praise Allah, they're not really looking at it like you think they're looking at it. They're dealing with the reality. Why do you think all the Masonic orders, the Shriners, everybody got Moorish fezzes dressed in jewels and then turn around and act like they don't know who the Moors are?
Well, Moors is just another name. It goes with black and anything you want to go.
That's COINTELPRO operations. Because as soon as you start claiming the birthright, those instruments start dying. Are we clear? Because everything is based on trust and estate. It's not based on money. They stole your money. You forgot that the Christians came here to steal your gold and silver, which is the money. How many generations is it going to take you to figure that out? They're dealing with movements against your estate. Are we clear? Europeans can never be the creditors because they are not the source of the estate. They've been administering over your estate under occupational powers. Are we clear? So get that clear in your head. Go ahead, good brother.
So if you present yourself not as a minority, but as the executor of that trust.
Yeah, now, look at, oh, this is really good. So whenever we're talking executor, whenever we're talking creditor, those types of terms, keep this in mind. Those are simply designations. In argument, it must be refined to a specific identification of the claimant. Are we clear? So if you'll watch how a lot of times Europeans are using those terms because they're trying, because the middle class is being, and it's pretty much already. They're just using this creditor-debtor argument just loosely out there, right? Well, guess what? An occupier of somebody else's estate can't damn be the creditor. Only one can be the creditor is the heir to the estate. And everybody else is a debtor. And they ain't Americans. How about that? So we got to clear this up, mustn't we? Huh? So now, so if you're going to argue creditor, the only creditor can be here in the Western Hemisphere, the Maghrib, is descendants of the Moors. You're standing on Morocco. And all of the estates and all of the instruments that the Europeans have created that have created those T-bonds, whether the birth certificates, marriage certificates, etc., on the bodies, have been hypothecated by the Pope under the Spanish Inquisition, enforced by the Secret Treaty of Verona, reinforced by the doctrine of discovery, and those instruments or bulls were directed at what? The aboriginal copper complexion people who are the Americans. That's why they start altering the dictionaries. Now, if these Europeans say they Americans, all you got to do is take a copper penny in its natural form, not when they polished it, and put it on the back of your hand, and tell them put one on his, so you can see who the Americans is. He black, and black means pale. You better look it up in the dictionary. You understand? We're the copper complexion people. And it ain't ebony either. You understand what I'm saying to you? And so you better claim your estate, claim your birthright. Keep this in mind. As you're becoming conscious and you start doing these types of activities, and you'll see brothers and sisters, anybody who comes here that has anything to offer, always pay attention to everybody. Take what is good. But don't fail to look at everything etymologically. And you better have a historical background, because history and law goes together. And if you declare to the world one time in a legal argument that you're black, you just killed the rest of your argument. You cannot have a pure glass of water and pee in it and talk about it's only a little leak. Have some. No, I don't think so. I'm not thirsty. And this is what people do when they throw that black thing in there, try to act like it is equivalent to nationalities. Do you see any civilized people around the world start talking about they light-skinned, orange-skinned, green people, and don't matter what color you are when they're dealing with the issues of the nations of the earth? You don't see nobody doing that dizzy, crazy, minor-minded, imbecilic stuff but us. And then try to talk about it spiritual. And then wonder why you keep getting screwed. And then you have leader guys keep on trying to justify it, knowing that the issue is denationalization. Because if you don't transact business in the honor of your mothers and fathers, you, by your own actions, are declared a quote-unquote stateless person. Write that down. Go ahead, good brother.
Yeah, Brother Taj, so what you're saying is right on time, because I just applied for medical school, and they asked on the application things that I wasn't aware of before taking these classes. You know, I've been coming here for like 2 years now, and so like I was confronted directly with questions like, are you a citizen? You know, your race and all these things, and I'm abiding to my indigenous, my. And
they will make what you call fixed form, and the fixed forms, and understand that's made with the census thing with Carlos Linnaeus, Blumenbach, etc. And those are the code systems where they would describe their property. But they will usually have somewhere other. Now, you're supposed to already know that that's their out from a legal perspective. But if you don't know what to do with that, meaning that if you don't know law, you don't know that that's their legal out to allow you your right to make an affidavit and attach it to the instrument. See, but if you don't know law, you would never think of doing that. And then if you don't know who you are, you're not even going to go there.
But they trying to call me black when I'm light-skinned black.
You know, and all that's how we do. You know, and then they'll say, oh, well, I can't be, let me say it's not Asian. It's not that, I'll just check one off. Oh, no, I don't know what that is. I ain't going to check none of them off. Then they'll fill it in for you because you're incompetent. Do you understand what I'm saying? This is very important. And it's also important when it gets into those gray areas to be well informed of the international community, the International Proclamation on the Rights of a Child, International Proclamation on Human Rights, Declaration of Rights of Indigenous People, and of course, Obama signed it to reinforce it because everybody else was ducking it. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? And so keep this in mind. Obama, the tradition. The president and his wife is leaving the country, right? Going to another jurisdictions all over the world. They're introduced together, correct? That's tradition, right? So Obama goes to Hikupta, which is Egypt, capital dominion of the Moorish Empire. Not accidental. Michelle goes to the Alhambra, last stronghold of the Moors before the Christians did the Pontifex, which is 1492, the overthrowing of Granada. Then they come back and they sign the rights of indigenous people. And then while he's in Egypt, he exposes to the world one of the best protected Masonic secrets. And he says the United States Constitution is derived from Muslim law. Then he goes into Article 11 of the Treaty of Tripoli. Of course, you all know, from the halls of Montezuma to the shores of Tripoli. You hear the song. And he's sending codes. Then they come back and sign the rights of indigenous people, and you see them walking through the double doors with the Moorish flag big as day on the left of them. And then our people say, hey, Bama ain't did nothing for that, man. What do you mean? He's trying to get you to stop trying to be black, which puts you in the codes. It's an agreement. You can't transact business in another man's name, sign another man's name, and then take on a tag that he created that takes you out of the human family. The state cheats every damn thing you got. That's how they've been screwing you. And if you understand that much, just historically, the average person, you wouldn't have to tell them they're Moor. They'll find out themselves, take you to a child's dictionary and show you that they're Moors. I mean, well, go ahead, good brother.
So 2 more points. First, so the bill is going to be like $100,000, but they want money for it, which we're not dealing with money, and I'm the creditor.
So it's not so much that we're not dealing with money. You're dealing with estate. See, now, what we want to stop doing, what we really want to stop doing is stop making that statement that we're not dealing with money. Because we are dealing with money. We're dealing with the fact that they stole our money. And there is no such thing that when you start saying most of those statements come from Europeans that's trying to save the middle class. You know, that's like saying there is no dirt. Just because they took your dirt. They didn't take all of it. You still stand, what you stand on? Air, because they took our land. Well, what you stand on? No, they hypothecated. They made a claim, a legal claim, under color of law without physically possessing it. And most of them don't think they're going to live past 25, and they're not exactly wrong in considering that because their parents have abandoned them. And we can go on and on and on. Complete.
And the last point is with regards to this Ebola scare.
We want to remind everybody that United States Corporation Company, through its operatives, have a patent number on Ebola. So you don't patent something you didn't create. Continue.
So I know a lot of, I guess you'll call them patriots, or not even just patriots. Not even patriots. They're not even patriots.
Yes, they are.
Not of this land, though.
Yeah.
Not of this land.
The patriot term, the patries are those who are supporters of the popes of Rome. That's a term given to deputy knights and supporters of the hierarchy of the bishopric of Rome. So when you're talking about patriarchies, you're talking about service to the Pope, essentially from a political perspective, even though that may be taken connotatively. That's its relationship. If you're going to talk about Asiatic Africans, you're going to talk about matriarchy. So patriarchy or patriarchs don't exactly apply to us in this political form. Not that we can't be honor to our fathers in a sense, but in the context that has been used and applied, it's referring to essentially European males in support of the Christian hegemony. So that's the hegemony of Christendom operating in the world. And so you all look up the Christian hegemony. And what's against you is the Constantinian hegemony, which you have been told is called white supremacy. So we need to get to the root of what things really are so that you can have a better comprehension of what you're dealing with and what's been used against you. We need to stop guessing, and we need to know specifically what things are. Again, and I repeat, when you say citizen, you must name the nation state. It has no power by itself. So when they say U.S. citizen, that's a trap without qualification. You see? As an example, on the Moorish nationality card, when it says you're a citizen of the USA, what that means is unity, salvation, Allah. Unless you're told that, you might get twisted. And it should not be presented without qualification. But the nationality is Moor. The land is Morocco. The insignia of the Moorish nation is the pyramid with the eye of Allah at the top. Are we clear? Because that represents the activation of the pineal gland or Illuminati. And so what you have is Europeans stealing your birthright, and so now they're claiming to be Illuminati, and you say, it's a devilness. And then you give up your birthright because you don't know the real history. And this is how they're ruling you. So they're simply governing over your estate. Think this, think this. How's somebody going to be in your house and they be the sovereign? Huh? So everything that they claim is a colorable claim. Color of office, color of authority, right? Color of law. Write down, and we told you before, look at this again, hypothecate, hypothecation. This is what's going on. The birth certificate, also, and notice how these things tie together for those who may not know. If you're talking about the marriage certificate that was set up by the DAR is the Daughters of the American Revolution, which they have a building in Washington, you'll see it's all marble. Are we clear? Steps, everything, it's all marble. Daughters of the American Revolution, they teach their sons with your science from the womb, applied science of the number 9, and prepare their sons to administer over your state. Their sons are called Kyklos, Ku Klux Klan. Do you understand? And so all of them belong to the circle. They learn the real history, and we run around with beliefs that they told us about. And we think that we've arrived. And we keep getting in this game thinking that we're going to mess with them without knowing the real history, and they're occupying your land. Therefore, Europeans can never be the true sovereign. They can never be the true nobles. This is also why they hide and suppress the original article of Amendment 13 with its original 20 sections, of which Section 12 declares that the trade with Africa is forever prohibited on pain of death and the full forfeiture of the properties of all persons engaged therein. And the descendants of Africans shall not be citizens. Why? How are you going to be a citizen of the corporate entity and persons who are occupying your land? Duh. Dress code issue? These fundamental things you need to get clear. Because in order to transfer the debt to you that they created under their false premises, they're going to ask you, are you a U.S. citizen? As soon as you say yeah, you accepted the debt. Are we clear?
And so my last point was, I was pondering that these people want the federal government to shut down the borders, as other nations have done. But I'm thinking that they cannot, and they've been lying to the people, giving them reasons why. Oh, CDC says it won't work, Obama says it won't work, but the real reason is because they really don't have the authority of the world.
Exactly. Not just that, but look at this. When they do that, they're in violation of international law. Why? What do I just pass out to you? Clearfield Doctrine. We're talking about what is actually going on and trying to bring our people up to snuff so they can reason. So if you understand what's going on, you understand the politics. If they try to enforce that, they're in violation of international law because these other beings are of nation states under international law. They're not light-skinned, orange-skinned, yellow people, and it don't no matter what color you are. They're Mexicans of the United States of America, Mexico. Brazilians. Estados Unidos do Brasil. United States of America, Brazil. These are the true Americans. They start talking trash, well, guess what? They can be brought to International Court of Law, to The Hague. Are we clear? They're trying to work this stuff out to keep us asleep while we keep playing halfway dumb. Still trying to get a piece of the action on this system that's already damn collapsed. Middle-class European, the wealthier of them, are denouncing their U.S. citizen. They ain't no U.S. citizen. They going and nationalizing elsewhere. So the IRS don't take the rest of their stuff. And our people still sleep looking for a J-O-B. It's called Job in the Bible. Long O, short O, Joe, job, Joe. They're taking all your shit. Oh, yes, they are. House Joint Resolution 2847. Our people need to wake up. And we're doing the best that we can to get past the egos, the vanities, the clubism, because you don't have a lot of time. Because it's already crashed. They're just doing it. You got to give them credit for covering this stuff up really good. But they can't hold it out much longer. The reason why is because they can keep on printing the Federal Reserve notes to cover the frauds of the banks. But they can't make other nation states buy them bonds anymore. And that means that their war machine can't be funded. So this means their allies are going to start turning to China and India and Brazil. This is why they're doing that war. Their game is up. Meanwhile, our people think, I'm trying to be USS because we want to march and pray on it. And they ain't woke up yet. And guess what? They're going to be eliminated. You can't serve two masters. You see, and it's like this. This European stuff is up, the argument's over. See, our people still have faith in Rome because they think they're getting paid. They ain't never damn been paid. Look at House Joint Resolution 192. You've been given what you would call commercial instruments and securities reference instruments, which is not money. Not only that, they've been foreclosing on you on it, and you can't foreclose on a security. Fraud, 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 fraud. I mean, this is just, and the real deal is our people just don't understand stuff. They're not dumb, they're absent of information. Our job to do the best we can to get you this information as solidly as we can and as quickly as we can, hoping you study. Please. Because we're not going to be able to do this forever either. Because they're going to use the Ebola stuff and like that, and as people start getting, they're going to be what?
You can't come this area, see, because we found, see, in McDonald's over here, we found a patient that had Ebola.
And then the guy escorting them out with suits on, hazmat suits, right? And the other guy keeping notes and he ain't got crap on. But then you ain't caught on. It's a game. It's a justification. Good brother, good seeing you, man.
Hi, Taj, how you doing?
All right, family.
Questions?
Go ahead.
Have question, have statement. If you have a social security number and you're using a social security number, you are a citizen.
No, they say it don't make you that. It makes you a corpse. They're claiming it. They're claiming it, don't make it so. And it's back to this whole deal. They're saying they created a fraud and imposed it upon you, and therefore it makes you a citizen. Well, what nationality is that?
Well,
No, back up. Let's back up. Because I already, with respect. Because we're going to have to clean this up. No different than they've set this premise.
You know, when you was a baby, you put your footprint on that instrument. And so you was born with a contract. That's not a contract. Yes, it is.
No, it's not. Some European can't take a baby's foot and put it on a stamp and say that baby made a contract. For anything to meet the laws that govern contracts, it must be competent. It must not be vague. There cannot be any disclosure. It can't be done by a minor. It must be substance for substance, cannot be vague, and it must have the signatures of two parties with a witness. Now, you show me in them instruments got the signatures of two parties plus a witness. As a matter of fact, they call the mother an informant. Continue, good brother.
oh, what I was saying.
Your mom sold you. She said, 20 sandwiches. What's she doing speaking in tongues? Bull. There ain't no contract. Go ahead, good brother.
But people are buying and selling in that name.
Yes, they are.
And they're subjecting themselves to
but look. I'm not arguing that. This is what I'm saying. Before we go there, and I'm not dismissing what you're saying, we have to stop accepting the false premise that the Europeans have set up for us in that sovereignty argument, because they're still trying to claim a birthright and a sovereign right that is not their own. We must recognize that these are hypothecation instruments. An hypothecation instrument does not meet the law that governs contracts. We're not saying that these instruments don't exist. We're not saying that they're not used as if they are legitimate. I say this. Look at the Clearfield Doctrine, right? They say that they're government. Clearfield Doctrine say they're not. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? You know, this is why whenever someone who begins to really understand the rules or the laws that govern contracts and trust, when they start contesting, this stuff falls apart and the banks and all them other suckers are declared as a fraud. They're just not enforcing everything because they are thoroughly corrupt. Are we clear? This is another reason why the world is dumping their T-bonds, because there is anything that has to do with economics under the U.S. corporation jurisdiction, there is no legitimate court. There is no justice. There is no remedy. Not because you're bound, because they're a fraud. But continue with due respect.
Well, okay. But we are buying and selling using their...
We can't buy because you can't pay.
Well, we are using their property.
Let's back up.
Okay.
They're using our property.
Is the social our property?
Europeans are occupying Morocco. The resources here belong to us. They've been hypothecating and claiming to be theirs. The rule by which they are to operate on our land is held by a covenant called the Constitution and Treaty. It is supreme law to land anything or any law of any state to the contrary notwithstanding. Any statutory codes that they've created that claim, claim, that is superior to the supreme law to land is nully. It's dead. And what I'm saying to you, I'm not dismissing what you're saying. I know what they're doing. But what I want us to stop doing is giving it a quality of obligatory principle that doesn't exist with it. It's a fraud that's being enforced under a color of law said only like that. If you or I say it's the quality of a contract, then you verified it as that. It isn't. It still doesn't meet the laws. It doesn't meet the laws that govern contracts. Therefore, we can't argue it as a contract. We can only argue it as an imposition of a security. And a commercial paper and a security that's presented and constructed under fraud. Under the law that governs contract, it is not binding. It's only enforced by force of arms. That's how it must be presented, because that's in fact the truth.
But isn't it not true that there are more than one constitution?
Yes, that 1871. That's what we're talking about. And that doesn't make it valid. See, this is the deal. You can't use the law or the covenant from which an office is drawn or authorized against itself. You can't use the power of the Constitution to rule against itself. It's neutered.
But didn't the 14th Amendment create another constitution, a corporate constitution?
Clearfield Doctrine, you got it right in your hand. And it's based on that very thing. Like I said, this is what I'm... Next time we come, look, this is what we're going to do. The next time we come...
Let me just say
go ahead.
And if you're using the social, you're subject to that jurisdiction.
Yes. Now...
And you do not fall under the republic, you're in the democracy.
Well, no one's under the republic because they overthrew the republic.
The republic still exists.
Now, aren't we declaring it?
It never left.
Yeah, now, when you claim to be Moor and you enforce the Constitution and treaty, you're supporting the republic. The opposition you have is the demo order of Delano Roosevelt, their coming out party. This is what's going on. And so you have Moors who are supporting the republic, and the people think they're out to lunch because they think they demos. And then they're trying to give legitimacy to a de facto government because they don't know what de jure is. De jure didn't stop being because they set up de facto. This is the Clearfield Doctrine again. Read it. Read. Can I use your respected QLs? Right here. Note, bottom paragraph. Commercial paper and securities, which means those checks, those Federal Reserve notes, and that's anything associated with it. So that means the birth certificate, marriage certificate, all the Social Security, all these instruments that they used to regulate these security notes, because that's what they exist for, right? The privately owned Federal Reserve notes, FRNs, and the corporate states created birth certificates as constructed by, used by, and sold by the private foreign owners, officers, employees, beneficiaries, profiteers, agents, and agencies doing business as the United States of America Corporation Company, and their, chartered and licensed franchisees, etc., have been and are deceptively traded as fungible instruments. Such practices have been and are declared by the United States Supreme Court as being criminal and felonious violations of the law. Securitization. That's what is being done, which is the process and practice of homogenizing financial instruments into fungible securities, and selling such felonious instruments on the securities market is unlawful and illegal for private corporations. HJR 2847, bail-in, confiscation of assets, blah, blah, blah. At what point is that a lawful contract? When the highest court in the land is declaring all that stuff a fraud. And how are we going to say it's binding? Everything they're doing is under color of law and force of arms. This is why the civilized world is turning on them. And so what I'm saying is I do not refute that the operative use of these instruments implies, not establishes, an implied obligation that still, in fact, does not exist. That which is created in an illusion remains an illusion. That which is created under a color of law remains a color of law. Thus, the highest court in the land has declared all of those fungible instruments that they homogenize as unlawful and fraud. Tell me where it is obligatory.
But when you're buying and selling,
that's not what I asked you.
Okay, when you're buying and selling with the
you're not buying. You can't buy because it can't be paid.
Okay.
Because it's movement of a state. It's not movement of. House Joint Resolution. United States. You can't pay a debt with a homogenized securities instrument. It must be done with substance. It's in violation of law of money. You can't call it money.
I agree with that.
So you can't be, you ain't even been paid.
You're discharging.
Now, all right. Now, according to the public law and international law, under rule of occupation, we're under occupation. The estate is ours. By them violating the Constitution, by virtue of that act, the remedy is that all so-called debts are discharged automatically. However, what they've been doing is fraudulently misrepresenting it, sending you statements of account, telling you that there's bills, and telling you have to pay by listing you as a debtor instead of a creditor. That's all it is. That's all it is.
But are they
you have no obligation.
Are they doing something illegal if you're a citizen?
A citizen of what?
Of the United States.
Which one?
And the 14th Amendment, United States. The corporate constitution, the 14th Amendment.
Well, the 14th Amendment is a corpse. It's dead. Are you dead?
if you're using
No, I'm just saying.
if you're using the social, then yes, you are. You're one and the same. If
Well, you listed as dead. Now, that's what we need to qualify. Now, this is why it's important for people to know law books, know the terms, know how they should be prospectively placed when we're making these discussions, and stop admitting to be dead when we are indeed not. So the issue is a person, natural, who is not in their proper person, go, law book, if anybody got on your computers, fourth, go into impropriate persona. Impropriate persona, please, real quick, and read it out real quick. Now, if a plea is made before any court, in the argument, etc., it must be pled in propria persona. For if not, the court is assumed to have had leave because an attorney or lawyer is an officer of the court, and if you're not in your proper person, the court automatically has jurisdiction. And so since court is not just those rooms, it's society in general, and all transactions are made, anything that takes place in what you call an aggregate court is only for the what you call final resolution, when all aggregate is considered and all the dross is moved away and you come with the scales of what's left. And you better be in your proper person. And if you're in your proper person, all that color stuff don't count. That's why they don't want these people to know nothing about nationality. That's why they created the color code system, so that we'd be outside of the human family. And then buying and selling, not with their instruments, thinking that we're buying and selling with the mark or the number of their name, which makes you agency of movement of your own damn estate. We need to really refine what's really going on. Stop talking about, you know, we paid this, and since we got Social Security, and since we had $2, you ain't had no dollars. Dollars, gold, silver coins. Stop calling the fiat dollar. We gotta stop calling things what they're not. Because when you do, it is no different than we before court, right? Before so-called court, right? And you said, Taj, you had your sneaks tied together on Thursday. You know, it's against the rules too. Damn, man. No wonder I was walking slew-footed. You know, then I say, since that's the case, we dealing with admiralty law here, so we're not dealing with constitutional law, we're dealing with estates and trusts and stuff. All right, so I sign you trustee, and since I'm the beneficiary, I want you to expunge all this mess. And give me $550, how much? $550 from the few minutes I got right here. Meaning that you create a trust on the spot verbally. Why? Because you're an heir to the estate, if you knew that. That's how that's done. That's why it's done. That's why you can assign them right on the spot, even with a verbal trust. But if you call him officer, you also assign him that too, and he accepts it. Call him judge, he accepts that. We really need to be clear on what's going on. And I'm not dismissing what you're saying. What I'm saying is the way the European presents it, and it's a muddied argument. Because they're still trying to claim an estate that ain't theirs. Go ahead, good brother. But I'm not dismissing what you're saying. And we need to work that out. But my whole argument is that we need to clean up the language that the European freemen are presenting, because it's still colored. The principle of the argument is valid, but it's still distorted. And if you take it just like it is, you give them just enough to do what? This is what you do. Why do they create LLCs? Limited liabilities, corporate entities, to hide behind. That's the mask. Personality, Latin. Mask. Am I right, Salah? Personality, mask. Oh, so, and then you start talking to, and you know, I wrote Santa Claus 10 years. And UCCs too. I ain't got a bike yet. I'm suing him. Well, you'll probably be arguing with Santa Claus for the next 10, 20 years because he's a fiction. Why don't you argue about that guy who got the suit on? You know, we keep arguing the corporate person in the first person. We need to stop doing that, pull the mask off them, identify the persons, because as soon as you say citizen, you must name the nation state. Now, oh, you're an Englishman. No, I'm American. No, you ain't, sucker. Go ahead. But you get the point. You get the point where I'm coming from with that. They're admiralty courts. Yeah, they're admiralty courts. And as a matter of fact,
when you go in there as a living, breathing divine spirit, you're not even supposed to be there.
yeah, but you know,
And you're supposed to know that.
but you know this too. They're not even courts. They're auction blocks. United States courts have
They are
been.
courts, they're legislative courts.
There's no lawful courts in the United States since 1789. Go look at the law. I can bring the documents. I can bring the documents.
Article 1, Section 8.
For a court to be.
They can regulate commerce.
They regulate. They can regulate. They're simply a commercial trading block. They're auction blocks.
But they're Article 1. Each branch of the government has its own court. There are
All right.
Article 3 courts.
I'm not arguing that.
Courts, and there's Article
I'm not
2
arguing
courts.
that. Look what we keep falling for. United States federal government has been dissolved. House Joint Resolution 192. They don't have any offices. They've been transferred to the IMF. We keep giving them equality. That's why they keep having the power. And it's not that I'm not arguing. Where you're coming from, I'm not arguing that. This is what I'm trying to do with us. We got to stop empowering them by claiming something. This is what we're talking about. You know, we go to Depot now and we go to Lowe's, right? You remember they had two guys and they had Rickles and Channels? Well, see what we're going to do right here, get some Channel stock. See, because if you cash in the Channel stock, I don't think you should buy Channel stock. Because it's cashable. I don't think you should buy Channel stock. You know, because GM is starting to make saddles. I don't think you should invest. Maybe tires, engines, don't invest in saddles with GM. It's not a good idea. We keep, and now, the argument that we're making is great, and I think that we should bring that out and explain it and talk about what's happening to us. But what I'm really suggesting to you, me, and all of us is that we must look at those arguments and clean the language up because it's colored. It's not the intended, we're not talking about the process that it's not how it works. I'm not arguing that. We're giving them a quality that doesn't exist with them, and you have the power to do it. Yes, one is the fact of law, one is the process of law. Anybody has House Joint Resolution readily available in the printout? Pull that up real quick and read the first two paragraphs, please. United States, this is United States, Florida Congress, the legislature, and so this is where they make so-called laws, right? I want you to get your stuff off, good brother. Huh? You cool? All right, sis.
Okay.
Salah.
Yes.
Do your stuff, girl.
Okay. To assure uniform value to
No, House Joint Resolution 192. Trafficant speech on the bankruptcy of U.S. bankruptcy. U.S., which is a corporation company. Y'all got to get clear. The U.S., United States Corporation Company, is not the United States Republic. It has no governmental powers whatsoever. I got it right here. Let me borrow Ken's spectacles. This is the Florida Congress. I'm talking about how we supposed to look at this. Now we're talking about how European freemen are arguing this thing, trying to still get themselves in. Because they're all U.S. You not. Mr. Speaker, we are now here in Chapter 11, and members of Congress are official trustees. So if there's trustees, that means there's an estate. So if they're trustees, they damn sure can't be the beneficiaries. All right. Presiding over the greatest reorganization of any bankrupt entity in world history, the U.S. government, we are setting forth, hopefully, a blueprint for our future, and there are some who say it's a coroner's report that will lead to our demise. So you see the dilemma that the European so-called citizens are in? Because they the U.S. It is an established fact that the United States federal government has been dissolved. So what franchise that they got or what stock they got is legitimate? Any corporate entity that's dissolved, what do you mean they got stock? What do you mean anything that they create is lawful? Anything that they do, anything they operate is dead. They're a private citizen, no different than anybody else, thus the Clearfield Doctrine, which I gave y'all before we came here, before we started. Clearfield Trust Company, it was inadvertently concerning a check. But in doing so, they undid themselves with their damn greed. Clearfield Trust Company versus United States 38 U.S. 363, 371, 1942, 43. Governments descend to the level of a mere private corporation and take on the characteristics of a mere private citizen, where private corporate commercial paper, Federal Reserve notes, FRNs, and securities, checks, is concerned. For purposes of suit, such corporations and individuals are regarded as entities entirely separate from government. What U.S. court? We got to be clear on what's up. We keep giving them qualities, and when you give it to them, they accept it. This is all I'm saying.
That's all fiction.
Yeah.
That's all fiction. But we're acquiescing to the fiction because we don't know.
Yeah, I understand that. I understand that.
We don't know what constitution that we're operating under.
Yeah, but they're not operating under any constitution. Listen. All right. Constitution. Let's back up. Let's back up. Article 6, Constitution for the United States of America, the Republic. All debts and contracts entered into before the adoption of this Constitution shall be binding against the United States under this Constitution as under the Confederation. And all treaties made or which shall be made in pursuance thereof shall be the supreme law of the land. And the judges of every state shall be bound thereby. And any laws or constitution of any state to the contrary, notwithstanding. We're Moorish Americans. We have a treaty that superseded, which Obama talked about. We enforce that constitution, and they are bound. And our claim supersedes their claim. Now, you're talking about the problem that the Europeans, U.S. citizens have, not Moors. Because we're holding them to the law. And we're not bound by some secondary constitution crap that Ben and them did in 1871 with their tripping, and then with them setting up their democracy order, which they had no authority to do whatsoever. That fraud can't supersede this Constitution.
Islam, brother right here, he want to ask questions.
All right, goodbye. Go.
I was just going to ask you, based on what...
I just want to make that point, but I'm not denying what you're saying. I'm not denying what they're doing. I'm just saying we need to look at it differently. Go ahead, brother.
Just 1 second. So, based on what you said, so what is the role of Obama in all of that? Like, what is Obama doing in, the whole thing? Like,
he's put his neck on the line. Lucky he didn't get shot.
No,
but I'm just saying, he's obligated because he's the praetor of that corporation. But what he did, he set out strong signals. It's on us to act on it. We've been trained to look for sacrificial lambs.
When they gonna lay his neck on the railroad track like the other guys, like Malcolm and all the rest of them, when they try to tell us we disses them, and then after they kill them, then we talk about what great men they are. We good at that. And we need some more sacrificial lambs. No, we need to take damn responsibility. Honor our mothers and fathers, declare our nationality, understand the signals that he sent. Because I can show you a picture big as day. Just type in the computer. What does Obama have to say about the Moors? And duh. And if you can't read between the lines, and the people saying, what he done for the black man? It's like, whew. We need to grow up. Stop trying to be phonies
everybody that we're not, and then complaining about the results of our own foul. Look up, do me a favor, next time you come, go to your law book, look up the common law, and look at the aggregate basis of the common law, and please take 10 minutes next time you come and report it to the family. And you will see the common law trumps the Roman law, the civil law, and other types of law as it traces back to what? Archaic traditions and customs. Which means if you can't trace back to the ancient traditions and customs of your forefathers, you can't use the common law. This is why the Europeans, those so-called European free guys and stuff, that's why they run into problems. Because you know what the judges tell them? You can't use the Constitution as a defense because you're not party to it. But guess what? We can, because we got a treaty that supersedes it. How about that? Sealed by Article 6. That's what we're supposed to be saying. So these other constitutions that they created, it ain't our shit. That's their private corporate stuff. That ain't got a daggone thing to do with you, unless you keep on saying it do.
Taj,
okay, go ahead.
In the preamble, where it says, we the people of the United States.
Yes.
And then when it get into the end, it says the United States of America.
Yes, two different entities.
The United States would be the corporation, correct?
No, the United States would essentially deal with the aggregate natural. The United States of America is a corporate entity.
So I thought the United States of America would be the land, and the United States would be the corporation.
Now, no, the land is Morocco. It's covered up, it's Societas Republica el Moroccanos, covered up by the United States of America. In other words, that's the veil. That's the veil. Do you understand? And so what you have is the United States, in order to secure our posterity, etc., that simply represents the unity. And so that represents treaty and the Constitution, which is a covenant, is essentially for them to do business on our land. And this is the bind. And as soon as they break it, there's nothing for them to say. There's no authority to do anything, period. The key is that we fell for the game of transacting business in their names and talking about human beings are crayons. I'm talking about we Smith, Jones, and Johnson and Christians, thinking it's a religion, and gave up our birthright to that. I agree that we were in violation. Do you understand? But outside of that, there's no claim that they can make in any color of law and talk about as binding, because it ain't binding. As soon as you or anyone makes a refutal or rebuttal against that, they will declare it a nullity. As an example, when you all see, because I know our time is short, how much time I got? All right. Some of y'all seen, and some of you have used it, and people have used it around the world, and also mostly in North America, that allodial permit that we put on the website. Now, when I built the community center in Buena Vista, the Europeans came there, put their orange tags on it, blah, blah, blah. You know, stop. You can't be doing this and blah, blah. Now, that's, so the brothers, you know, property, et cetera, I'm building this community center. So nationalized them real quick, et cetera. And we did a removal, a writ of removal, and then took it to Superior Court, right? Knowing that still they're all colored, right? And the Pellegrini is the name of the European so-called big-time lawyer with the $2,000 suit type stuff, 2,000 note suit.
These Moors think they ain't supposed to pay taxes and stuff.
In the court, you know, a court's like a theater. I mean, it's so big that, like movie theater on that side and the back and everything. And he says, Raj Bey, you called him up, right? So me and Brother Raj came up, and the Europeans, it was mostly Europeans in there, and they was like, you know, everybody silence, you know, seeing what this is all about, right? And so Pellegrini was saying,
these Moors think they ain't supposed to pay taxes and stuff.
So, so the judge, magistrate, anyway, he's going. He's doing. Oh, wait a minute. Yeah, and he's just talking big trash. Me and Brother Rod sitting up there. You have these papers? He said, yeah, and they think they ain't supposed, and we have all kinds of violations in their building. The building down there, 75-foot building by 24, ain't paying any no permit and stuff. You have these papers? Yeah. Trial de novo. Mr. Bey, all claims of contempt by Buena Vista, dissolved, don't exist. All fines don't exist. All claims by Buena Vista don't exist. Trial de novo, make sure he gets the papers. Next, he was red and mad and everything. That's when they tried to make me disappear that night. And people use that all. That's where that writ came from. So I constructed that writ, posted it on the building, and every day in the morning we had to come and get it. Europeans was coming around stealing them off the buildings. And I finished building that building. They would ride past, the inspectors was riding past. They wouldn't come on the land. They was mad at me. And I built that community center with that allodial permit. It's based on me understanding who I am and who they damn ain't. When we went down there, Buena Vista, they had the building inspectors and all these people there. Me and Brother Raj walking in there with a suitcase, and they had the 2-piece paper and it says, that's permit, you know, the application and permit. And I looked at it and said, who's treating? And they looked. And one of the Europeans got up and he walked out. I think he smelled smoke, right? You know, like the vending machines down the corner? No, treaty, right? And it says, owner, applicant, etc. Applicant may be an owner. I said, you ain't signing none of this stuff. Any of y'all got treaty? What are you talking about? I said, do any of y'all got treaty? Well, we're going to increase the fines, you know, because the fines and always already accumulated close to 10,000 notes, right? They, you know, anyway, that's after that we took it to court, took it to the higher court. They was mad. They came in the middle of the night and took me and tried to hide me. They was moving me all around all the jails and everything. Yeah, they was pissed, and a lot of people have been using it ever since. This is also when I did that reversion and the when I did the questionnaire for the foreclosures, when they was trying to sell those people's properties in 211, and Fox News and them was out there, and that shut that down, and Congress sent representatives up and sent, what, 100-some-odd million notes or whatever, supposed to be helping these people because the so-called judge wasn't going to give them a stay. They was pissed. The lawyers stopped talking to me after that. I passed that all around, and that's what they've been countering all this stuff about, too. And then you've seen a lot of people were getting conscious, but they started off using the UCCs. Then in the middle of their stride, started trying to declare Moorish nationality. European wasn't having it. It's called a conflict of law. Do you understand what I'm saying? So they've been trying to intimidate a lot of people. But the point that I'm making is this. They're pissed, but if you understand who you are and understand who they are, you mess the system up. My issue with you all is to get us conscious and growing, because some of you will see more than I see and others see. The issue is to build on a solid foundation. We've given you and are giving you foundation information. It's not based on emotion. It's not based on belief. It's based on fact. But you must understand that you're under occupation by European foreign entity persons pretending to be government. Your government, but you haven't been acting like it. Therefore, you're being accused of abandoning your estate. According to law, any movements of what you would call transfers of commodities, ETC, are simply discharged by law, by international law. What has happened as the people are waking up, the Europeans are really upset because it kills the banks. They're going to close. So they're countering you with colorable actions, not because you're wrong. Are we clear? So what I am recognizing that people start thinking that they're wrong or they need to do something different. They need to solidify their actions, stay on point. But what's happening with a lot of people, they're trying to get a position in the system with a JOB so they don't want it to completely fall. Well, it must fall before it can be cleaned up. Do you understand? And so a new world order must come in. The issue is whether it's going to be built on an honorable principle of constitutional law or whether it's going to be built on a colorable code of the secret Treaty of Verona. That's what you're faced with. And since we have difficulty making up our mind, China, Russia, India, Brazil, and other nation states, including Germany, their main ally, are now turning and they're dumping them UST bonds. And so whatever investment y'all think y'all got in the system that you keep on trying to get a hold on is done. It's over. So it's in your interest to really study the stuff real quick, get grounded, put your stuff in the state, stop transacting business in that European's name because he's going to take all your peanut butter sandwiches and the jelly. House
No, we got enough for like 2 more questions, but in the meantime,
go ahead.
I want to take donations if anybody can give donations. So anybody has any questions? Anybody? Nobody?
Are we good, y'all? All right, peace.
One quick question for you.
Yeah, go ahead, good brother.
You talked about 1492, the fall of Moors at Alhambra. How do you
that bull at that time, the 1492, that would be called a pontifex. Okay. And then 1493, that's called Intercatera Divina. These are the 2 major bullas that are the foundation of world politics. From those bullas come the Spanish Inquisition, which is the Inquisition against the Moors and Yahudi, or what you call Moors and Jews. The enforcement arm of that, or the agreement of Christendom, or the Christian nations to enforce it, is called the Secret Treaty of Verona. The nuanced instrument by which they take the liberties to murder, kill, claim estates, etc., alter papers, is called the Doctrine of Discovery. Out of that comes the Christian Black Code 1724. After that comes the Black Codes adopted into all the states when they closed the Freedmen's Bureau, and the creation of the 14th Amendment. And then to enforce the 14th Amendment, you got the Buck Act and a whole bunch of other stuff. Once you understand the real history, you know all of these things are tied together. They're given different names so that you don't recognize that they're all the Spanish Inquisition. Now, what you must recognize and what we all must recognize is that in order for them to do business at Morocco, they cannot maintain servitude under Republican form of government. This is why they secretly set up the democracy order. And this is what the meeting on Jekyll Island was, with representatives from England and representatives from the popes. So people must recognize that all of these activities have everything to do with you, the true heir to the estate. When you see the Europeans that are using the middle class, they're trying to act like they're the Americans and they're sovereign, and no, they were the beneficiaries of your being occupied. Don't get it twisted. You're the American, they're the peregrinos. Peregrinos, it means the wandering stranger. That's where you get the word pilgrim from. They're pilgrims, you're the Americans. The sooner you can get that clear in your head, the sooner we can start getting things straight. You understand what I'm saying? You must name the parties. And when you say citizen in law, you're saying nation. So you better know that nationality and citizen go together. They've been using them as if it stands by itself, and they've been getting away with it with people who don't know law. You can't say citizen without naming the nation state. So if you say citizen, what are you, Russian citizen? Oh, what are you, Brazilian? Oh, well, you're American. Well, I'm American. No, Brazil? Well, no, I'm American. No, Belize? No, I'm American. No, Chilean? No, I'm American. No, they ain't Americans. They're European Englishmen. Are we clear? You're the American. That's why they altered the dictionaries. That's why they don't. You look at your early Webster's dictionary, it'll say what? It's the old copper penny test. As a matter of fact, later they used to do what you call paper bag tests. You know, the dark paper bags. But now it's the copper penny test. Who's the American? Copper complexion people. Ain't got nothing to do with no black people, which is the Paleolith. You ain't black, you're Moors. You know, if they can get you to keep on playing these dizzy games that your overseers keep on pumping on you all, you're giving up your birthright, and that's how the corporate state's been is cheating all your estates. That coupled with you.
In 1492, you came upon these shores, 700 years educated by the Moors, 700 years educated by the Moors, educated by the Moors.
Document, that's a brief on the clear field. I'm going to give you, we talked about this earlier, but one thing I recognize is that a lot of our people really need to understand what's going on in order to have remedy. Are we clear? I want to inform you that I'm also doing a critique on the House Joint Resolution 194, which was introduced by Europeans apologizing for holding slavery, etc., and all the injuries. But I'm doing a connotative, denotative critique of it and going to present it back to the House of Representatives for them to clean it up. One of the things they're considering is publicizing that, etc., but they're still publicizing it or presenting it with a lot of connotative linguistics. It has an appearance of support, but unless you correct the language, unless you put things in perspective, it's dead, and it continues. But the requirement by the international community on our part is for us to speak up. Unfortunately, this is one of the keys, and this is why it's very important to understand etymology, because it's one of the very keys. Because keep this in mind, I know all of you are aware of the constant phrase that you hear, cultures in the language. And what you'll see is COINTELPRO operatives who get that backdoor payoff with the European will try to minimize the importance of etymology because that breaks the system that they set up to dumb our people down. Are we clear? When you, and just like Brother Abdullah was saying and Sister Salah was saying, one of the interesting things you'll find with Europeans, they'll try to minimize the importance of etymology and then turn around and hold you to the standard as soon as you have an issue in law. This is why 9 times out of 10, when our people have any kind of legal problem as far as taxes, IRS, or anything else like that, and they go in there talking that hood language, and they get screwed. But then they're going, but in the schools, they're going to try to tell you that this is unimportant. Your law books are etymologically correct in general. Are we clear? They may structure the dispensations of the definitions in a manner that you have to have another background to read between the lines. However, law books are based on etymological correct dispensations of denotations distinguished from connotations. And usually, if it's connotatively constructed, they will put a section in there that will qualify it as such. So keep that in mind. Whenever somebody tries to tell you that etymology is not important, look for COINTELPRO or look for the Europeans engineering, because what happens is as you're waking up, it breaks the system of the ignorance that they feed off of. Are we clear? Let me make some things clear. The Clearfield Doctrine, and I won't go through everything because we'll do that in a future class. I'm going to give you a broader history on the origin of the Clearfield Doctrine, even though the Clearfield Doctrine was initiated based on a case of a check being cashed in Clearfield, Pennsylvania. But it was so that's where it got its name. But it's really based on the principle which most people don't know because you're not really taught proper history, is that the United States Republic, with the order of European operations at Morocco that's sanctioned to do business by treaty, was overthrown. Are we clear? Do you all understand? Are you following where I'm coming from? Most people aren't aware of that. And so most people, when you say U.S. government or United States government, they immediately be thinking they're citizens, and they be thinking it's the land, or they don't even know the difference between a political metaphor and the geography, the physical land. That's dangerous with our people. Much of what we're talking about is that must be clear with you so we can fix some things with you. Are we clear? And people can give you information, and if you're not aware of those nuances, understand that people who are taking advantage of you are not going to make that issue with you. If you start saying you're a U.S. citizen, you don't know that you just said that you're Christian property under the 14th Amendment, a corpse, dead. Are we clear? This has much to do with the hypothecation claim that the Jesuits are making through the United States Corporation Company and the 1040 tax form to the Queen of England that you think is going to your children. 40% goes to the Queen of England, the 60% goes to the Jesuits under the secret Treaty of Verona, which I know that most people aren't even aware of. Are we clear? So it's important for you to know these nuances so that you don't keep getting screwed. Other thing I want you to all understand is that income has nothing to do with wages or anything that you're compensated for by your laborers. Are we clear? Because I'm recognizing a lot of people aren't aware of that. Income, let me make it very clear. We're talking law, we're talking fact. Income applies only to profits made from capital gains of investment by a corporate entity. Are we clear? That word does not apply anywhere else in relationship to what you generate because you're working for somebody. And they have mixed the two. And they've been screwing you with that. So when you start talking about, you know, you got paid and you got income, you just lied, but they'll hold you to it. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? And you fill out a tax form and say you got income, you've agreed, unbeknownst to you, to be a corporation as distinguished from a natural being just by agreeing that you had income. If you don't have stock in Sears and that stock didn't generate some finance, not the capital investment, but the profit generated off that is the income. Nothing else is. And if you're confused about that, they certainly ain't going to tell you. Well, we're telling you. All right? You got that clear, y'all? Salam, good brother. Get the brother Mike. Please pass the mic around. Let's keep this solid. The other deal, as we're going on, I want to re-emphasize that. Go ahead, good brother.
So there's a difference between income and wages.
Yes. Now, compensation is called pecuniary compensation. Pecu, or pecuniary, is really related to cows because, remember, culture and society on earth was agricultural. And so we used to trade with cows, animals, blah, blah. So pecun it relates to cows, stuff like that. All right? So pecuniary compensation is related now in government for those compensations made for your wages and your labor. Are we clear? That's pecuniary compensation. Distinguished from income, which is the profits made by corporate investment only. Now, how many of y'all got stock in some corporate company? You got some stock in some corporate company? You got some stock certificates? Huh? You got, is anybody in here, guys? How about, anybody got stock in Enron? Anybody got stock in the electric company? Anybody got stock in BMW? Y'all got, how about y'all got any stock in the water companies? You all got stock in the airplane, Boeing and stuff like that? If you don't have stock, you never had income. Are we clear, everybody? Can you please repeat that? If I don't have stock in a foreign corporate entity and have not received a profit of that investment, I've never had income. So when somebody says, how much income you got? And you start saying, oh, I had $5.50. You lied. But guess what? They'll hold you to it. And this is how they've been tricking you with your income tax. That don't damn apply to you. Never damn did. Until you agreed to it. Because you can't read. Etymology. Are we clear? So when brothers and sisters and other people tell you that you got income and didn't qualify it, they set you up. That's why we're so firm on our emphasizing on you being able to read. Because they've been taking advantage of our people because they can't damn read. And they've been, how many people here know that the 1040 form that the people fill out every April, 40% goes to the Queen of England under the secret treaty of Verona, and the other 60% goes to the Jesuits. Not a penny goes to your schools, not a penny goes to your children, not a penny goes to your health care. All of it goes to England and the Vatican. How many of y'all knew that? Now look around, y'all. Look around. Look around. Look around. Everybody look around at each other. And look how many hands up in this room. Now, that would indicate you why we're in trouble. Just on the economic base. Are we clear? How many United States of America are there in the Western Hemisphere? Say it again? 4. Brother said 4. How many? Anybody else? I see wrinkled eyebrows. Now, go do the research. So that is said to you as an example. You would say United States of Mexico. United States of Brazil. That would be Estados Unidos do Brasil. United States of Brazil. They're all America. America is a continent, not a country. This is another flaw that our people don't know because they can't read. And this is called what you call connotative training. So you have a lot of adult people that have the minds of minors, and they're classified as minority. Minorities think that America's a country. And as soon as they say it, they gave up their birthright. They don't know that because they can't read. But they think they can. And you're held to it. So you're declared incompetent, then the European claims your estate. Are we clear? So a child, we got to make sure these babies know right now, South America, Central America, North America, they're continents, right? There's many political jurisdictions on the North Continent, on the Central Continent, and on the South Continent. Are we clear? And they are all Americans, aren't they? So people who can't read think the Europeans who are occupying our land is Americans. And as soon as they call that European American, they just gave up their birthright. Little things like that because they can't read, because they don't understand etymology. Are we clear? So the United States by itself is a political metaphor and must be qualified whenever you're using it in any obligatory or attachment or alliance perspective. Are we clear? I'm going to tell you how important it is. It is so important that our people have no idea between nation states and private foreign corporations. It's another reason why I'm giving you the Clearfield Doctrine. Because it has much to do, well, I ain't going to bother with that because you got it in front of you. The Clearfield Doctrine. Brother, read a paragraph. Let sister read a paragraph. And pass it around. Y'all read a paragraph, and we're going to talk about this. Because you need to understand that the United States, the Republic, are we clear? Which is the legitimate order that's sanctioned to do business under treaty in Morocco, in the Maghreb. Maghreb is Morocco, the most extreme west. You're standing on the Maghreb. Do you understand? This is why you see that pyramid on the back of the note, but no one speaks under it, because y'all been silent. And they made y'all think it's the devil, and so you reject your own estate in the European Illuminati is claiming your estate because you think pyramids are the devil because they told you. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? I'm serious. And so if we're going to fix this thing, our people need to know the politics, they need to know language, they need to know what's really going on. Beliefs is not going to get you anywhere but in the grave and poor. Are we clear? It's time to grow up, stop being little boys and girls, put your childish things away, and start dealing with reality. One way to do it is understand culture. Go ahead, read, good brother. Clearfield Doctrine.
Clearfield Trust Company versus United States, 318 U.S. 363-371, 1942. Governments descend to the level of a mere private corporation and
get closer into the mic, please.
Governments descend to the level of a mere private corporation and take on the characteristics of a mere private citizen, where private corporate commercial paper, Federal Reserve notes, and securities checks is concerned. For purposes of suits, such corporations and individuals are regarded as entities entirely separate from the government.
All right, are you clear? Is anybody clear what's been said to you right in that first paragraph? Mm-hmm. Raise your hand if you're clear. You're lying. But go ahead. Go, second paragraph.
Okay.
Go ahead, sis.
What the Clearfield Doctrine is saying and establishing in law is that when private commercial paper is used by corporate government, then government loses its sovereign status and becomes no different than any other mere private corporation.
All right. Yes. Let the sister read this next one.
As such, government then becomes bound by the rules and the laws that govern private corporations, which means that if the government officials, government agency, contractors, employees, or personnel intend to compel an individual to some specific performance based upon its corporate statutes or upon corporation rules, then the government, like any other private corporation, must a holder in due course of a valid and verifiable contract or other evidentiary proof of a commercial agreement between it, the government or agency, and the one individual or natural person, etc., upon whom demands for specific performance are made.
All right. Go ahead, finish it out. Finish it out, because we're going to talk. We got to talk. Really got to talk.
And further, the government must be willing to enter the contract or commercial agreement into evidence before trying to get the court to enforce its demands, called statutes.
Are we clear? Are you seeing how they don't apply to you and how they've been falsely making them apply to you and how these people have been cops and everything and mortgage companies been pretending they're government, been foreclosing on you, been putting people in jail and locking people up to mandate that you get license insurance, and they're private corporations. They're not even government. And the people didn't know it because they didn't know that the federal United States has been dissolved. That's why we tell you all to read House Joint Resolution 192 so you can understand this and why we do the rich that we do, why we speak in nature that we do, why we tell you it's important to be yourselves, because if you're transacting business in that European name, he has interest in it because name denotes possession. That's why the Europeans put their family names on you. So what do you think happens when you go out buying and selling with that European name innocently thinking it's yours? You're simply acting as agent, and you become a corpse. This is why persons who are listed as black people are listed as dead in the view of the law. That's why they have no human rights, because they're outside the human family. Civil liter mortuus, dead in the view of the law. Now, you understand, if you understand that principle, you understand what happened to Dred Scott. Plaintiff in error. And people talking racism when his status was dead. And we need to get away from the emotional arguments and start dealing with law, what's really happening to our people. On top of the fact that our people keep on thinking that these people run around here falsely claiming to be Americans and falsely claiming to be government are, in fact, imposters, and they're stealing your identity. And because you won't speak up, and then you start talking about crayons, you're listed as incompetent. And then walking around doing business in their name, you're acting as agency. They do have jurisdiction. only in that. Do you understand? This is, again, why when they communicate with you with that name that belongs to them, they'll put it in all capital letters because it ain't yours. It's a title to a trust, to an estate, and it's not you. But if they can trick you to think it's you, now you're obligated to pay. You see how you nationalize? I'm trying to keep this stuff simple so that you can understand why certain things are done, why certain things are said to you. We don't want you to accept things because we say them. We want you to comprehend why it's said from a historical position and from a fact position. Unfortunately, the people aren't aware that the United States federal government has been dissolved. Don't damn exist. You got a feudal order system, and their coming out party was in 1933 under Franklin Delano Roosevelt. Not that they weren't doing it all the time. And so Drew Ali, they got rid of Drew Ali in 1929. 1933, they came out and set up their democracy order, subverting the republic. Thus, the Clearfield Doctrine. You see, now do you understand? You understand the perspective? So this is given to you so you can use it in foreclosure places, for so-called foreclosure cases, so-called tickets, so-called any arrests, so-called any loans, so-called anything you're dealing with these people with. They're never government. Stop calling them that. However, by you being the heirs of the world's largest estate, as soon as you call them officer on the spot, you made a trust and you just assigned them. So stop calling them that. As soon as you call them white man, you call them sovereign. So don't get pissed if he acts like the sovereign, because you just declared it because you're an heir. And if you didn't know that, know it now. Are we clear? You need to understand this. They're going to take you for what you say. And if you don't know what you're saying, you're in trouble. And so we got a lot of things to correct so that we can stop having so much trouble. See, what we got to do is heavily reduce the bleeding economically and politically in our communities so that energy can be redirected. Are we clear? You cannot do it without knowing law and history. It's not going to happen. Your emotions don't mean a damn thing in the real world. You're plugged into a false matrix and you must be unplugged. However, you have a right to stay in it if you want to, and you will be sucked dry and dropped just like a carcass. That's what their plan is. That's what our people have been wrongly calling racism, wrongly calling prejudice. It's been the doctrine of discovery and the secret treaty of Verona under Inquisition operations of an occupied people who don't know their home. Are you clear? So you have a feudal order operating, imposturing as government, and indeed, and in fact, are not. Thus, the Clearfield Doctrine. Are we clear? Given to you in brief. There's more information that will give you more support, but you need to be clear on this so you can understand why we keep redundantly running our mouths about etymology and about history of all. Because what you recognize, we asked you to raise your hand. 5 people in this whole crowd raised their hand, and most of you are somewhat scholars. No doubt. You wouldn't be here if you weren't studying. But what does that indicate to you? When we go out into the real world, you're going to get beat up. Because this is the advantage that Europeans, and particularly other nationals who come to the North, are aware of, and why they make economic progress in the wind, and our people can't understand, because they understand that this is not a real legitimate government. Our people keep thinking, and the United States government, U.S. citizen. You just said you're a corpse. You better qualify it. When you say citizen, nationality must be conjoined with it. And you better get clear on that very fast. Because they've been tricking our people. You do not say citizen without nationality. They go together. Just like you don't say horn without law on it. You get the point? Kind of like, it's kind of like that. You know, I'm the best guy, you know, because when I get a horn, you know, I can really get it. And then the brother said, well, brother, I got a sax in the car. Let me go get it. I got a cold right now. Yeah, right. You know, we talk a lot of trash. But in the real world, you're going to be held to this. And we have a lot of fixing to do in a short period of time. Because you must also know, write this down, they're executing, they've been executing for the last year and a half and accelerating House Joint Resolution 2847. This is where they're going to take all your fiat, all your bank accounts, all your deposit boxes. They're going to be foreclosing like crazy, people who really don't understand this thing, because the nations of the earth are dumping them U.S. corporation T-bonds. And all them bonds is based on the birth certificates, marriage certificates, driver's license, original manufacturer's titles of origin that they possess on your cars, because you don't have title to it. They give you a fake certificate of title. It's all been hypothecated by the Pope. This is why we gave you all the other, the other week, reversioner. That's your consciousness of understanding House Joint Resolution 192 without us having to keep going over it. Are we clear?
There were 2 cases in the last week where they went in people's bank accounts. Nothing wrong, no violation. They took the money out. One was for $30,000, one was for
Yes, and you ain't seen the last of it. They're getting ready to accelerate it because they're trying to save their order, which is dead. This is another reason why they're going in Ukraine. This is why they're starting all these wars. And this is why the Social Security Administration and other so-called U.S. corporate agencies ordered over 40 billion rounds of hollow point bullets, which are unlawful even in war. What, do you think they're writing checks with them? I don't think so. We're talking about what's really going on, and our people are asleep looking for a job that ain't going to be there. And so we're emphasizing these things because you need to be bound with each other. You need to love one another. You need to inform your families, and you need to learn a little bit about estate law and trust law and put everything you got in trust. And if you continue to transact business in that European's name, a human being will never dishonor his mother and his father, for he recognizes his pedigree. So you'll never see a Chinese come up here and talk about where's the light-skinned yellow guy's organization. Never happened. He ain't giving up his birthright. So you see grown people, what I'm telling you, my light-skinned black girlfriend, that's property. And they confess it out their own mouth. Who you? Joey Smith. And I'm Christian too. Oh, all right. Black codes, and then they get mad. That's what the black codes are for. Such persons outside of human family. However, it doesn't apply to nationals. That's why you see nationals come from around the other parts of the world. That crap don't apply to them. So they're not burdened with that nigger tax. Are we clear? And it's structured right in society. It's not even hidden. It is just these people, they're hard-headed. You tell them that human beings aren't crayon? Uh-huh. My uncle's black. Yes? Well, you can take them right to a dictionary. Heritage Dictionary, and you'll see black is Middle English. It don't go past 1100. And then somebody telling you ancient black anything, then they'll say derived from Old High German. Then they'll tell you it means pale and shining. Ain't got nothing to do with complexion. I'm black. Oh, you're a Paleolithic man? Because that's where it comes from. Paleolithic man is German. Our people can't even read. So no, somebody who's taking advantage of you is not going to argue with you. They're going to say, Ritalin. I'm serious. And so the codes apply, and then when they enforce the code, then we will call them racist. Well, race is called the species. I think the human species is called the race, and the human race is broken down into multiple families called nations. You can go to the United Nations, you can go on the World Courts, you can go to Philadelphia, and you'll see the flags that represent the nations of the earth. And I say the green people and the purple people and the light-skinned, orange-skinned, pinstripe people, and don't matter what color you are flag. The only people think that are people who have the mentality of children. Of course, they need to be represented by a man, particularly whose name they use in any daggone way. And they're going to tell you about their special personal connection with God and Jesusness. All right, anyway, go ahead.
So
get the point, y'all.
Right on.
Go ahead.
So acting in propria persona, in your proper person, claiming
that sets up a foundation that doesn't cure.
Okay.
In other words, what we're doing, this is what we're doing. This is basically what we're doing. We're cleaning the dirty table so that you can begin to eat.
Gotcha.
It doesn't mean that you're qualified. It's cleaning the foundation. That foundation in law is referred to as honor versus dishonor. The principle in the common law that trumps the ens legis is the honor of your mothers and your fathers. That means the recognition of your bloodline. Therefore, honor your mothers and your fathers that you're dead. Understand your agents, your agency against yourself. No different than if somebody was doing business in your name. No matter where they go around the world, they sign that name that don't belong to them. Why do you think persons that are called black, Negroes, and coloreds can't vote unless every second praetor of the corporation after the Senate of the House of Rome decides whether they want their cattle to vote with them names that belong to them? Why do you think it only applies to persons who think they're minorities? It doesn't apply to other human beings around the world. It only applies to persons who insist on trying to be somebody that they're not. And no matter how many generations that takes place, they're dead in law. That's what makes you a corpse. That's where the ens legis comes from. Do you understand? That's the 14th Amendment person. And that's why they gave the corpse the word person with the 14th Amendment. So then people get confused who can't read law. They see this a person and don't know a corporation's a person's too. And so they send them statements of account in the mail with capital letters on it, which means person, corporation, and then you agree to be the corpse. And so as soon as you start making an argument, you're already dead in the view of the law, and because you accept it as a bill, which it isn't, you're obligated to pay. When actually it should be discharged, because you're under occupation. Of course, if you didn't know that, you're going to act like you're a debtor. Do you see the problem? You see the problem? Clearfield Doctrine. Go ahead.
Well, I got a question.
Go ahead.
So the corporations have been given the rights of people.
14th Amendment. In other words, when they did the spurious 14th Amendment, which was actually set up by field marshals, this was a disguise. See, because when you go into, you know, like why people are familiar when you talk about 40 acres and a mule. If you ask them to set some substance around it, informationally, most of them couldn't tell you.
That racist white man is mule. I want my mule. I want my 40 acres.
Ask them the substance around it, they can't tell you, which makes them incompetent. Now we're dealing with the 3630 parallel. We're dealing with, they would have had to give us, repatriate the people on the land between the Rockies and the Allegheny Mountains, and they recognized that they would have given most of the land back. So they bumped off Lincoln, covered that up, etc., created the 14th Amendment, and created the artificial corpse person. Then they needed some nigger marching preachers to convince you to be people of color, which means artificial persons, and make you think it means Afrocentricity. And you agreed to be 14th Amendment persons, which is listed as called U.S. citizen.
So what do you say about the people who try to use their corporate or their corp status as a tool and try to gain the advantages of a corporation would have?
Well, when natural persons do that, they have a consciousness of the secret treaty of Verona and the Spanish Inquisition, which is the real political background that's operating in the world, and particularly in North America. States, because they know our people don't know that, and so when you talk about territorial jurisdiction, they say, yeah, I was in Jersey last week. What? You wasn't? Yes, I was. This is a corporation created on paper. You know, you can't drive in Maryland. Well, Maryland is a corporation. It's on paper. So you must talk about the aggregate land. That's why you got to start claiming your land. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? Our people need to know the difference between corporations and the natural living, breathing beings and the organic land. And if you don't have claim on the land, then they put you in the corporation because you're listed as a corpse. That's why when they do those licenses, they put all capital letters because it's in the ens legis. point. But this is what I say. This is what I say. As an example, people, Asiatics and Europeans too, and probably mostly Europeans because the middle class is being dissolved, so they're starting to expose more stuff. How many of you are aware of Lincoln Heights and some other townships or places in Ohio, and there's other places they ain't mentioned too around the country where they shut down the police departments. They had to park the cars. You know why? People starting to learn. They're starting to go after them bonds. And they start putting these people first person. They don't say the police department did it to me. They said Freddie Johnson doing business as a policeman without a bond was messing with me. And they tried to get me to pay a ticket. But I went in there and told the magistrate who pretended to be a judge, I came to get paid. Everybody else was paid. What's up? It's securities. Isn't it? So this is more like less what's happening. But that's how you're supposed to look at it. Because it's an estate. That's how you... So you're not so much serving two masters. You need to understand you have an estate that they've been hiding and controlling under color of law. Go ahead. So that fine line, so this is what we're doing. We're trying to clarify things so that people can make the distinction between the fine line. Because it's easy to step over the line. Because you got to know the difference between person and person. It's a nuance, isn't it? And so what happens if these persons don't know the organic person from the corpse? Well, I'm Frankie, and I want a peanut butter sandwich. You know, or just like you said up here as an example, we can put an organic plant up here with dirt in it, growing nicely, and then we can get this plastic plant from Kmart and tell the people, come up here, we're going to test everybody, come water the plants. And then we'll see who puts water in both of them. And you know the one who puts water in both of them is either an imbecile or they're a minority. They got the mentality of a minor. That person cannot present themselves. They would be represented by a barrister from England because apparently they got the mind of a minor. They'd be listed as a minor, particularly if they start talking about human beings with crayons. First indicator. So we got to clean that mess up for real because that's what's messing our people up. Partially, it's other things, but those things are keys. And those are code systems that the European quickly tells who his property is. Because they're human, and so they're reclaiming the estate or the access to the estate, although they didn't create it, to have some cognitive control over it. That's what that's about. Okay. And so usually they will authenticate the birth certificate, which is where the priesthood, the dark priesthood, the people our people trust, that told them separation of church and state, they're agents for Rome. You can go in any poor community, you go, before you get 3 blocks that way, before you get 3 or 4 blocks that way, before you get 3 or 4 blocks that way, before you get 3 or 4 blocks that way, you'll find a spy center. And they fund them themselves. They think it has something to do with Jesusness. They're spy centers. And they belong to the Jesuits of Rome. Actually. And you're funding your own enslavement. Our people think Christianity means Jesusness. It means Constantine. The Niceno-Constantinopolitan Creed is the official name of what is presented to you as Christianity. And it belongs to the popes of Rome. It's a business hegemony system. And the Skull and Bones Agreement for the marching Negro leader guys who you think don't know this stuff is called a 501c3 agreement. And because our people don't read and they don't understand, and say that's the 501c3, that's what the preachers get for teaching the word. They do. These so-called intelligent people that know God, Jesus, Allah, and Muhammad and everything. Yeah, man. See, because when you teach the word, you get a 501c3 agreement. See, and then the tithing is 10% for God's word. That 10% tax is Roman tax from Pope Sylvester II. You know, our people are so out to damn lunch And the real horrible thing is that people you've trusted have been putting this on you and your generations, and this is where your suffering comes from. It really is. Come from the dark priesthood that you think love godness and Jesusness.
God,
Yes.
back to his question.
Going back to the brother's question here, what I'd like to know, is it practical to try to straddle the fence based on the question that he
Good
asked?
question. Say that again for everybody.
Is
it practical
to straddle the fence?
All right.
Based on my understanding of what his question was.
Well, let's put it this way, and we'll qualify it too. I think it's long been stated that you can't serve two masters.
Absolutely.
And that's called straddling the fence. It's quite difficult because you give jurisdiction trying to claim jurisdiction. Therefore, you must be clear on jurisdiction. This is why we've always taught jurisdiction. The nature of jurisdiction, the structure of jurisdiction, the trinity of jurisdiction, status, jurisdiction venue, then adjudication. Then there's what? How many types of jurisdiction? 3 in general, although there's 4, but in general 3.
Subject matter.
In personam jurisdiction, subject matter jurisdiction, territorial jurisdiction. Therefore, you must know the aggregate. You must know nations. Days may be longer upon the earth, land. That translates into what is known as the common law. And it trumps what is called the Roman law, the civil law, and other types of law. If you cannot make a claim, competent claim, to the connection of the heritage, customs, and traditions of your ancient mothers and fathers, that means you better know something about yourself. The common law is not recognized as having any attachment to you. Are we clear? This again makes it dangerous. This is again why we keep telling people, look at these terms in law books, because if you did, you would see your own violations. And you would recognize how your leader's been playing you and why they won't give you them kind of books.
They'll start talking about, you see, I spiritually was talking with my grandmom, and she just guided me to this.
What'd she say?
She spoke in tongues.
Oh, all right. That's not how things work in the real world. Are we clear? I'm serious. The world ain't going to take you serious. Let me tell you another thing. We're going to go, not only how Dula will give you the etymology and the historical background of the transliterations of scripts. Those scholars who really know the truth know that the whole stories that they were reconstructed in about the 21st dynasty of Hikupta, etc., ignoring the other dynasties prior to that, which were all matriarchies. And this is when you begin the stories of the Jesus type thing that you get today, and the Abraham. It's totally contemporary. And if it's not given in its proper cosmological perspective, the world is put into darkness by ignorance and thinking that that's the beginning of the world. Do you understand what I'm saying to you? And so scholars really know this, but they won't tell that because the dogma systems that they have set up, which are really dogma systems, which is counterfeit religion, would collapse overnight. This is again why all your preachers are 99% of them in secret are Masons, while denying it publicly. Same thing with all your industrialists. Same thing with all your preachers, presidents, Tom Jefferson, all them. That's why they had Korans. Do you understand? Because they're dealing with the real history. They're not looking at it either spookily, either like, oh, praise Allah-ness. They're not really looking at it like you think they're looking at it. They're dealing with the reality. Why do you think all the Masonic orders, the Shriners, everybody got Moorish fezzes dressed in jewels and then turn around and act like they don't know who the Moors are?
Well, Moors is just another name. It goes with black and anything you want to go.
That's COINTELPRO operations. Because as soon as you start claiming the birthright, those instruments start dying. Are we clear? Because everything is based on trust and estate. It's not based on money. They stole your money. You forgot that the Christians came here to steal your gold and silver, which is the money. How many generations is it going to take you to figure that out? They're dealing with movements against your estate. Are we clear? Europeans can never be the creditors because they are